Welcome to Better Than Ever Live, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. Well, I guess you'd only be watching today. There's no recorded version of this. Wherever you're watching, I hope you're making today your masterpiece. My name is Dr. David Geier, orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and media medical expert. I help you feel and perform your best regardless of age, injuries, or medical conditions. And that's what we're here to talk about today. It is Ask Dr. Geier Live. It is your chance to ask anything that's on your mind: health, wellness, nutrition, aging, exercise, weight loss, anything like that. I'll do my best to answer that as much as I can. Or if you want to help me get back to my roots, and we talk about sports medicine, sports and exercise injuries, bone and joint and muscle and tendon injuries. I've got my trusty models. I don't have to run back to the back to get them this time. We are ready to go. As always, everything that I talk about on this show, this episode, all the time, but especially today, is meant for general information and educational purposes only. Yes, I'm sort of answering your questions, but I'm not giving you medical advice. And that's why you'll see sometimes I may be a little vaguer than you'd like me to be, but I can't give medical advice online. It's just not something you can do here in the United States. I haven't seen you, I haven't examined you, I haven't looked at x-rays, MRIs, or any of that. So if you have specific medical concerns, please talk to your doctor. Or if you want to come see me specifically, I would love that. I see patients in Charleston here, and I see patients in Charlotte, North Carolina occasionally. So definitely contact me. Go to my website, drdavidgeier.com, and you can find the contact page and get in touch with me that way. Wherever you're watching, if you're on YouTube, thank you for joining. If you're on LinkedIn, those of you on Facebook, very excited that you are here. Phil is back from Germany, really excited. Oh, and one thing to say, Phil did this, so this is perfect. I broke my elbow, now out of plaster, my wrist is stiff. Ideas. I've got some ideas, but Phil reminded me of something I always say. I get some people have real complicated medical problems, but if you make it 2 or 3 paragraphs long, I'm probably not going to stop and read all that to do it on this show. So try to keep it to a sentence, maybe 1 or 2 lines, makes it much easier. So Phil's broke his elbow. It's funny, and Phil, I don't know if this is a country thing or what. I haven't seen a plaster thing in a while. I guess you could do after surgery. Sometimes they put you in a splint, but we've sort of gotten away from the plaster cast. Still, the challenge with elbows, and in his case, the wrist, is that they get stiff in a hurry, and so you don't want to immobilize them any longer than you have to. Without knowing more, I am a big fan of physical therapy. Getting them to work with you, 2-3 days a week, where they can just push you harder than you can push yourself, whether it's your shoulder, whether it's your knee, your hip, wherever. It's very hard to get, especially, for example, the shoulder, getting extremes of external rotation or extremes of internal rotation on your own really helps to have somebody do that for you, and then they can show you ways to do it yourself. Depends on the body part, could be pulleys or anything like that can be really tricky. Phil, I'd be curious, what was your elbow injury? That's really interesting. So, that's just something you have to think about. Here's why I'm big on physical therapy. Not just getting your motion back. Physical therapy is critically important. Surgery or not, it's important to help decrease pain, help get your normal mechanics of motion back. One of the challenges is when something hurts, you very subtly change the arc of motion or where you put the stress, and it puts problems where they shouldn't be, and then you end up with a full injury or something that's very hard to get over. So they can retrain normal mechanics and normal functions. They can strengthen affected muscle parts to take stress off of a painful area. There's a lot of good that comes with physical therapy. And one of my pet peeves is when somebody comes to the office and tells me that they don't need to do physical therapy because they go to the gym. I will say this as clearly as I possibly can. That is not the same thing. There is nothing that you're going to do with machines or free weights or barbells that is the same as physical therapy, or very little. They don't work. For example, your shoulder. If you've got shoulder impingement and you need to strengthen the small rotator cuff muscles of your shoulder, these little tiny muscles in your shoulder, none of the big machines, none of the big barbells, none of the big dumbbells at the gym do that. They're working your deltoid, they're working your pecs, they're working your lats. They are not working your rotator cuff muscles. Physical therapy is much better than that. And personal trainers don't really have that background. They may give you some things to do which may or may not be okay, but it is not the same. They don't have the same training, and they just trust me on that. I know insurance is killing physical therapy right now in terms of making the copays that people have to pay really high time after time, and it just gets too expensive to do it. It's really an unfortunate thing, but I'm critically a supporter of physical therapy. Phil says, fell 10 feet backwards. Love that. Cut away the plaster so I could play through. Wrists improve over time. Yeah, generally body parts do get better over time as you start using them more. But if it's a significant limitation of motion, and for a professional guitarist that can be tricky, occupation or physical therapy, or at least in the United States, physical therapists sort of do everything but the hand and wrist, whereas that's more occupational therapists. But regardless, somebody to kind of get that moving can be really important. Vic says, can't straighten my elbow 30 degrees. Elbows, so I mentioned the wrist. Elbows get even stiffer very quickly. So whether you break your olecranon, the tip of your elbow there, you break the end of the humerus up a little bit higher, you want, radial head fracture. Let me see. So this is an elbow model, 2 bones of the forearm. You got I don't know how I can show you this and not get my hand in the way. The ulna, and then you got the radius, and sometimes you can break the radial head right up there, and that a lot of ERs like to put people in slings or casts or something like that, and they just keep their elbow bent for a week, 2 weeks. with elbows, you've got about 5 to 7 days in my experience before they start to get stiff in a hurry. So it's pretty rare that I immobilize somebody for very long, because once that elbow starts to get stiff, it is really, really hard to get through. I am surprised. Usually we have a lot more questions. The last few weeks I've not been able to answer all the questions. I end up seeing afterwards that I missed some. So yeah, let's see. What else do you guys want to talk about? It doesn't have to be injury questions. Otherwise, we're going to have a really short Ask Dr. Geier, which, yeah, that's okay. I'll be back doing these soon. One of the things, and I don't know, I can only tell how many people are on YouTube, but I can't tell on LinkedIn or Facebook. But how many of you would be interested in, and maybe I'll ask this on Tuesday when I get back to my sort of normal live show, like knowing what injuries pro athletes have, college athletes have that get hurt. One of the things I used to do a lot of, both radio interviews, TV interviews, that kind of thing, was talking about somebody's injury. Derrick Henry has a Jones fracture and has surgery for it. What does that mean? And how long could he potentially be back? Or, any number of different injuries that people have. Jamal Murray and ACL. There's tons. Steph Curry apparently just got some kind of injury last night. Apparently it wasn't too bad. That's one of the things I may start doing, not as part of this show, but just spontaneous live shows periodically. So if you're interested in that, certainly let people know. You are more than welcome, Phil. The week is pretty good. Sometimes it can take a whole lot longer for range of motion. But like I said, after an injury, you want to get joints moving as soon as you can. They get stiff pretty early. There are rare occasions you might need to immobilize something so that it doesn't do more damage to the joint, but that is not the norm. So even after, say, like a shoulder dislocation where you put it in a sling to calm it down, you don't leave it in that shoulder sling, shoulder immobilizer for long. You get them in with a physical therapist, start doing pendulum exercises and various forms of passive range of motion to start getting range of motion back. All right, well, this may be a really, really quick episode. I'm happy for those of you that joined us, and I know there's a bunch more people watching because now I actually can see Facebook and LinkedIn numbers. I think I just didn't click the right button, but so I've only gotten questions from 2 people, but I got more than that watching. It was the socket broken, huh? Not 100% sure what that means, but glad it's turned out well. All right, one more, and then I'll take off. Joy comments frequently, so I will. I'm very excited you're here, Joy. Joy says 3.5 months out, total knee. Everybody's got stiffness issues today. The popping is tricky, and there's with any injury, not just total knees, there is popping related to sort of normal tracking of the joint, and then there's popping that's potentially something bad, something loose in the knee, scar tissue, things like that. With knee replacements, what can happen sometimes is that you develop a little bit of scar tissue near the kneecap, and then you feel like a clunking sensation. So it could be that, and sometimes they'll actually go in and scope the knee and take that out. But very often it's just more how your knee tracks in the knee joint and not necessarily a sign of something bad. This is not a perfect rule of thumb, but my experience with popping is popping that's just like my knee. If you felt my knees, you can feel a popping sensation. No real injury or anything like that. If it's not painful, probably not a big deal. If it's painful as it pops, there may be something more going on. Not a perfect rule of thumb, especially maybe after total knees, but can certainly be helpful. Sent me to a specialist, suggested surgery to shave the bone. Yeah, I don't necessarily know what that would mean. There aren't many surgeries where you shave the bone down where that's, I don't know. Without knowing more, I can't really say. But very excited that you're with me on this short Ask Dr. Geier session. Next week, Tuesday, normal live show, and then I'm still trying to figure out Wednesday, Friday. It's easy enough for me to get on, but I have somebody that helps me create a podcast version and all that, so we're trying to coordinate that. But at least Wednesday or Friday, more likely Wednesday, there will be a live show. It may be Tuesday, we do normal show. Wednesday, maybe just answering questions, that kind of thing, talking sports, who knows. But that is the plan. If you're in the United States, I hope you're having a wonderful soon-to-be Christmas season, heading into the Thanksgiving season. And wherever you are, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I will see you right back here on Tuesday. You take care.